Green Mountain Dental Group is based out of Lakewood, and they're the best damn family-owned dentist in the metro area. And they're extreme Colorado sports fans, just like everyone here at DNVR. When you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam, you'll get a free Sonicare toothbrush, and be sure to tweet at everyone to let us know you went. They're only 15 minutes from downtown, and they've been a long-time partner with us here at DNVR, so be sure to show them some love and get that free Sonicare toothbrush. Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by Davidson's Beer, Wine, and Spirits, my go-to shop for Breckenridge Brewery, which is also the official beer of DNVR. I'm Rudo. Joining me is AJ Hafley, as always, and with the wrapping up of a very popular sports documentary show just last weekend, The Last Dance is officially over, and the look behind the scenes of Michael Jordan's final season with the Chicago Bulls is done. AJ, did you in fact binge it all last night?
I have made it through 7 episodes.
Okay, so you've seen most of it.
Yeah, I have just the very end here, getting ready to go. They are in the postseason of MJ's last year.
All right, so AJ has seen the most of it. I really have not seen very much of it, but to my understanding, the premise was that it was just a behind-the-scenes look at MJ's last real push for a championship. I know he came back with the Wizards and all of that mess later, but that's a whole different thing. So, the question we figured we would ask on today's podcast is, if there was going to be a show like that on the Colorado Avalanche, which year would it be? Who would it focus on? What types of things would be going on there in a behind-the-scenes look at this team? I have a couple ideas in mind, but AJ, if you want to pick one for starters, we can jump off from that point.
I mean, I think the obvious one for anybody, right, would be 2001.
Sure. The Cinderella story was already built there.
Right, and they were coming off of a really bitter loss in 2000 that they could start it from. Convincing Ray Bourque to come back for his last full NHL season. You know, Sakic with one of his worst postseason performances ever.
Yep.
In 2000, and hey, we need him to be better. Just a dominant regular season team. Mission 16W, losing Forsberg in the postseason, taking on the defending champs in the Cup Finals, 7 games, winning it at home. Everything about it was just it's made for a documentary.
Yeah, man,
it just was.
I totally didn't even think about that. Like, imagine having a behind-the-scenes crew panicking around the hotel as like Forsberg gets loaded into an ambulance.
Right, and like the footage of the hotel, of the restaurant or whatever, when he's sick and he's got to leave, and then he's getting, then they take him to the hospital, and Pierre Lacroix and Bob Hartley are standing around in the hospital like, oh my God, are you serious with this?
Yep.
Like the low hanging fruit here is 2001. Just all of the all-time great players involved in it. You can talk to the opposing teams about what it was like to play against them, and you talk to Marty Brodeur, you talk to the Devils, whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have that great story about how much Brodeur struggled with the altitude and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Start getting some of that stuff on camera.
Yeah.
So it would be. I feel like if you were going to start it off somewhere, I mean, 2001 is like the obvious season. Hard yes.
Yep.
And then of course they did have the documentary crew follow the 2000. I think it was 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
The Solani Korea Avs.
Yeah. The super team that ended up not being such a super team in the end.
The super team that wasn't. Yes. And they have that. I mean, you can go watch that on YouTube right now.
Yep.
So I think those are like the easy plain answers that aren't very fun to think about. I mean, like, they'd be great stories for different reasons, but
not particular. Most of the stories have already come out about those seasons too, as well. at this point. You don't have the behind-the-scenes footage, which would be great, but there wouldn't be any big like revealing when it comes to those.
Yeah, it would be fun to see the behind-the-scenes stuff. Waugh, especially after Game 6, where he was just like, "We're not losing the series."
Right. Not happening.
Yeah.
So, I would agree with you that I think those two are the wheat separated from the chaff a little bit as far as slam dunks to make into something. But there are plenty more interesting seasons. I would start personally with 13-14.
Yeah.
I'm super interested what that locker room was like, particularly because I want to know truly how much that team believed in itself on any given night, because that team consistently got so insanely lucky. And on the one hand, they seemed like this invincible team that no matter what happened, they were going to come back in the dying seconds and win the game as the Cardiac Kids. But at the same time, that locker room had to know this was not sustainable, right?
Right. That you can't just keep living like that.
Yep. So, I would be really interesting to see, like, what they were working on, what they were trying to, like, sort out, how much everyone was behind the team at that point in 13-14 in the locker room. And obviously, Patrick Waugh's first year as head coach was something you could follow a ton in that season as well. He didn't even need the behind the scenes to watch him knock the glass down in Game 1, so...
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm sure we'll get into this more, but any of the Patrick Waugh years and what he was like as a coach behind the scenes would be great. I know you had the pleasure of getting into that a little bit, but
yeah. Yeah. They could have the behind the scenes of practice the day after the game in Denver against the Capitals, where he talked about, during the presser, he said, we gave up too many scoring chances. We gave up too many quality chances. We weren't comfortable with it. I won't get into the numbers of it. And then as he was walking away, he left the room. He popped his head back in real quick, and then he told us what the number was. And we all went, oh, and then he disappeared again.
Gasped faces.
Seriously, we all were like, oh.
That would totally make the like advertisement for the show. a bunch of news guys like.
Well, let's be real. It wasn't a bunch.
Okay, a couple.
It was
you, Chambers.
It might have been Terry Fry by that point.
Yeah.
Because they took Chambers off the beat.
Okay.
To cover DU for a little bit. Because
Gotcha.
Remember DU was
they were on their champ run basically.
Yeah, they had those couple of years where Chambers was splitting time between the two.
Yep.
And then JJ.
Yeah, is that it?
I think so. And then like the news crews.
Sure, the actual news crews and like the Avs in-house people, but
yeah, but then like the altitude guys that show up now, like Kyle and Connor and all them, like they did not.
Weren't at the pressers and stuff. Yeah,
he was always sitting in the back, and he's always been there. But those guys did not used to come to practices and stuff ever.
Yeah,
Mosier didn't even come to practice that often. He was still kind of hit or miss, just because that's the busiest guy on the planet. That guy says yes to everything
and just does stuff. Yeah,
yeah. He just goes 400 miles an hour, 20 hours a day. So
there you go. Well, maybe we're discovering we don't need this show because AJ's just going to give us all the behind the scenes info.
Right, I was there. I just remember stuff. Yeah. No, there were some that the Waz last year was a pretty interesting season.
Yeah, I'd have liked Waz last year as well.
It was I would say Waz last year as coach is like 5th or 6th on my list. Just because watching the relationship
Well, yeah,
deteriorate.
you would have to include the following off season in that as well, I would think.
Yeah.
But
yeah, where it ends with him quitting.
Right, and
where he doesn't tell anyone in the Avs organization.
You just traded my best defenseman at the draft, kind of thing. Yeah.
It wasn't even at the draft. They traded Nick Holden in the middle of the day on some random day.
It was not that long before the draft, I thought.
I was in a movie theater for it. So that's all I remember is that I turned my phone on after the movie and
you're like,
had the email that Nick Holden had been traded, and I was like, what?
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to take our first break, because if you haven't got in on it yet, DraftKings has brought legal sports betting to Colorado. Look, it might have flown under your radar. It makes sense. There's a lot of more important things going on right now. But with sports starting to come back, DraftKings Sportsbook is America's top-rated sportsbook app. It's not some offshore operation that's all sketchy or anything like that. It's legit, and they have great deals all the time. They have opt-in deals where you can get free bets, you can get odds boosts, all sorts of amazing stuff that I've been taking advantage of quite a bit lately, betting on the Korean Baseball League myself. But they have amazing bets from top to bottom, whether it be just standard game on the money line bets or specific prop bets, whether it be Cale Makar winning the Calder or Drew Lock throwing 21 touchdowns next year. You name it, you can pretty much bet on it when it comes to DraftKings. You can download that top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code DNVR when you sign up for a limited time to get a $1,000 sign-up bonus. That's right, DraftKings Sportsbook has a $1,000 sign-up bonus. Don't forget to enter that DNVR code to get it, and you can only get it at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25x playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Almost did it in one breath that time. We were close. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, presented by Davidson's Beer, Wine, and Spirits with Rudo and AJ. So, I think we've covered some of the more obvious seasons, whether it being under Patrick Waugh's coaching tenure or the Avs glory years type of thing. This is where you start to get into some interesting years. Some people might agree, some people might disagree, but I think both of us have some personal favorites that we would love to see behind the scenes of.
Mm-hmm.
I would start with 16-17. And
you want to see the horror unfold?
I want to see the disaster of that locker room. I want to see what that locker room looks like once all the media clears out and those guys are left to just stew by themselves. Or, alternatively, we could just pretend that it never happened and it's a 10-hour documentary of just blank footage. But
yeah, that's a tough year, man.
Yep. I imagine that documentary would be like a train wreck where you don't want to watch, but you just can't look away type thing.
Yeah, I don't know that one would be multi-part. That might just be a straight 15 minutes of
sadness.
Yeah.
Frustration.
Yeah, or they open with the Blake away.
Well, yeah.
And they end with Francois Beauchemin screaming at his teammates during practice.
Definitely no positive vibes would be coming out of that.
Screaming at them.
Yeah.
Not like Nathan McKinnon was upset about something, but like Francois Beauchemin sitting... Yeah, as they were doing their stretches, they were all sitting around the logo on the practice facility ice, and him slamming a stick on the ice and just going ballistic.
I mean, see, that's why I want that season to be done, because I want to see the schisms in the locker room. I want to see the cracks in the armor behind the scenes as the season just completely falls apart on that team. So,
they 500 start.
Yeah, and look, as hard as Detroit is trying to beat that number, seasons like that don't come around very often. So
They
it
really don't.
it's certainly something unique in that regard.
As both that Avs team and this year's Red Wings team proved, all you need apparently is Calvin Pickard in net.
Guaranteed to have a disaster season.
Honestly, I feel awful for him.
Me too, man. He's such a good guy.
And he only played like 3 games for the Red Wings this year.
Yeah,
like,
right.
He was such a non-factor for why that team was so awful. I'm just taking a shot at a really great dude for no reason.
Did Jonathan Bernier just absorb the stank and then like bring it to Detroit with him? I don't know.
Yeah. It was I don't know. That year was really tough to live through on a day-to-day basis.
I'm sure.
Because we would go into the locker room and it was like, what are you I mean, that's why I would spend time talking to John Mitchell about face-offs.
Yep.
And you know, if you guys have listened to John Mitchell on the radio, that man can talk. And I don't mean that as any kind of criticism.
No,
I used to have to go when I would talk to Mitchie. I would ask him one question
and get a 5-minute answer.
He would give me 4 minutes of audio, and then I'd be like, "Okay, thanks, man." And then he'd be like, "That's it," and I was like, "Yep."
Got to talk to somebody else before they're gone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember talking to Jerome McGinley leading up to the deadline and asking him, well, you know, how different is it?
Yeah.
You know, knowing that you're probably going to be on the move, and this is you know.
Oh, I would have loved a behind the scenes of the Iginla trade call, where they essentially just gave him away.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would have been. I mean, these guys wouldn't have given you anything, of course.
Yeah, naturally.
But it's you know, talking to Iginla about what it was like as a player, trying to focus every day and trying to stay true to your professionalism when you knew the season was kind of slipping away from you, and knowing that there were players in that locker room who were wanting to go. Duchesne had requested.
At that point of trade,
his trade, he was desperate to get out of there by the deadline, and you know, just what it was like for a guy like Landeskog, who
had to face the music every single game with the media and stuff like that.
Well, we didn't have anyone to talk to, man.
Yep.
And you just every conversation from January through March was the same thing.
Right. Just like brutal. Nothing left to say at a certain point.
Yeah. I look back and you know, just selfishly, like, it was such a great learning experience for me, because there would be times where I'd be like, there's not really a lot to talk about. And it's like, that is a world where there's nothing to talk about.
Yep. You lost. The game was over 10 minutes into it for the 6th game in a row.
Yeah.
Just brutal.
Yeah, and I think it's just a day-to-day, you know, just a look at that team, and that frustration would have been, I think that would have been interesting. I mean, I think I agree with you that it would be an interesting doc.
Definitely not one you'd want to watch when you're having a good day and it ruins it for you, though.
Yeah, like, might be, like, I think it's the kind of thing that would go back and be fun. You know, like the Avs win a cup one day and you're like, oh man,
how bad it was. Remember,
right? Yeah. And you're like, you look at like baby Nathan McKinnon as he's still trying to figure himself out, and
yep,
you know, Duchesne in that room, and what it just all the different elements at play there.
All right,
it would have been interesting.
Okay, hit me with an upper then, AJ. Give me a different season.
I mean, for me, the number one that sticks out to me is the very next year, the 17-18 Avs.
The bounce back.
Yeah, because they were just a bunch of kids. It was a bunch of kids. It was the Duchesne trade. It was
the emergence of Nathan McKinnon.
Sam Girard,
Yep.
Nathan McKinnon breaking out, Mikko Rantanen breaking out.
Yep.
All of these things that sort of happened all at the same time that none of us saw coming.
Yeah.
None of us. Like, most diehard, like, follow the Avs on a daily basis. Nobody saw it coming. You hoped for it. I remember going into that season saying, this is the one season I won't know what to expect, because you just don't know.
For sure.
You have no idea, with so many kids who were unknown, unproven. Tyson Jost coming in, and Alex Kerfoot and JT Compher, all having their first like full rookie seasons. What is it going to look like?
I mean, you're talking about a young team and a new face. Dominic Toninato played a whole bunch of games that season. Like,
yeah, and Toninato, same thing. Like,
so
just
sure.
And then the drama of Game 82, the
Yep.
drama of not even that, but the drama of them watching the Blackhawks
fall apart.
game,
Yeah.
2 days before that, when Duncan Keith scored with 1 second left.
Yep.
To beat the Blues in regulation, that kept the Blues from eliminating Colorado.
Well, you had the whole storyline of Jared Bednar bouncing back too after the worst season in modern hocky, and
right,
the Avs sticking with him,
Jared
and
Bednar.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, just so many through lines for that team. There are so many different ways that team was a building block, and
you get into even more hindsighty, but that's also the year that they drafted Cale Makar. So
right. I mean, maybe that's where you start it. Knowing what we know now, maybe knowing 5 years from now, we look back and we're like, oh, Cale Makari's won 3 Norris trophies.
Right, exactly. So
like whatever it ends up being, like, just knowing that it would be, it all kind of started there after. Maybe one. You start with the draft lottery. It was like one last loss in this godforsaken season.
Yep.
They go into the draft lotto and they get 4th, and division rival jumps them at that.
Yep.
Like it was really like worst case scenario, and they made the most of all of it at every turn.
Pretty much. Like 9, 10, 11 players had career years that season or something.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was kind of like this year.
Yep. So
where it was, and that was the jumping off point where they clinched the postseason, and after the St. Louis game, and I go and I talk to Alex Kerfoot and I say, hey, you know what? When you signed here, it was mostly because you wanted opportunity, but you also believed, at least to some extent, the vision here.
Yep.
Did you think it was going to happen this fast? And he laughed and no.
And there they were.
Way.
Yeah.
He said, no way I thought it would happen this quickly. Like, I'm, not, it's just, he was just being honest. He didn't think, nobody did. Again, nobody thought that team was going to do anything. And that, like, they made the postseason at 95 points. Like, that was not a
weak team.
That was not like last year's Avs team took advantage of a really, really down year
to sneak in at 90 and
went on an insane run at the end of the season to get to 90.
Yep.
To have an 8-0-2 finish, and to finish with 90 points, like that team in any other year, that team would have been done for.
Yeah. Down
and out, and you're not even having the conversation. At that point, you are having is Jared Bednar the coach of the future conversation. That team had 95 points though. That was a 95-point club, and it was just an impressive group. Their belief, their youthful joy, their love of playing together, how tight they were. You had a number of guys just trying to prove themselves, like Andrew Ghetto. That the handful of rookies.
Yeah, I got the shirt on right here for.
I mean, yeah, second chance guys. That was the full season of Mark Barberio and Matt Nieto.
Yep.
Like, there are so many storylines from that team. It's always going to be one of my favorite Avs teams, and of course, I'll be a little biased because I covered that team. I was there, and that makes you feel a little differently for a club. But for a documentary, I just don't think that it gets better than that.
Yeah, I think it would be a great choice as well. Certainly, maybe there's a future year to come that might be a great choice too. But we can dive a little bit deeper into other options in a second. For now, got to tell you guys about MSU Denver Online. And MSU Online puts a dynamic education at your fingertips without forcing you to decide between earning a degree and living your life. MSU Denver is the Colorado institution providing rigorous and affordable online programs taught by professors who bring the real world into the classroom. MSU Denver graduates use their relevant degrees to land coveted jobs, and we even have some of our very own staff members at DNVR taking MSU Denver online classes this summer. So whether you're a new student just getting your start in college or a returning one or any other option looking for a third degree, first degree, anywhere in between, MSU Denver is the flexible option for you. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, presented by Davidson's Beer, Wine, and Spirits. I'm Rudo. He's AJ. We've covered the obvious. We've covered the recent. Are there any, let's say before this decade, seasons that really pique your interest outside of the super teams and the cup year type stuff?
I mean, the 97 team that won the President's Trophy.
Yeah.
But lost to Detroit and Fight Night at the Joe. And
you're essentially diving headlong into the behind the scenes of the Avs side of that rivalry, basically.
Yeah. And kind of what it looked like from the losers' end of it.
Yep.
Because you know how they always say that the history is written by the winners. We would get to see kind of what it looked like from Colorado's perspective of being on the other end of that and having to watch them go to the Cup Finals and barely break a sweat in sweeping it.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting team.
Yeah.
Maybe the 2009-2010.
Sure.
Duchesne and O'Reilly's rookie year, right after Sakic had retired, and they made that playoff run. They were up 2-0 in the series against top-seeded San Jose. Like,
they were supposed to be the first rebuild that was supposed to work. Obviously, we know now that it never really kind of came together, but you had a very talented team there with, Duchesne, O'Reilly, Stasny down the middle, essentially. Granted, O'Reilly ended up playing wing quite a bit back then, but a team that really struggled to put a solid defense together for a long time as well.
Yeah.
It would be interesting from a more Avs historical point, I think, to do that, because Duchesne, O'Reilly, those guys are bigger pieces of Avs history. But for that exact reason, I wouldn't mind seeing one in the couple years before that, as the era of, Sakic's last few years and Svatos, Wolski, those type of players. It's almost the forgotten era of the Avalanche that no one really has a good beat on, that people don't really remember even what the team was like, granted because they weren't very good, but nonetheless, that I'd love to get more background on those teams.
Like maybe one on the Sakic 100-point season when he was 38.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
38, 36, something like that. I don't know. He was old.
Yeah, definitely well beyond his prime, and that gives you kind of a through line, right, to cover the season. But
yeah, like what ended up being his last dance, really, because that was it.
Yeah. Obviously, his career didn't finish the way he wanted, but
Yeah. I mean, it was like, I think he played 19 games that last year, and then the incident happened, and that was it.
dude, I don't know the official details or anything, but there were a lot of rumors at the time floating around that he was healthy at the end of the year and was just done.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And honestly, whatever I say would be speculative.
Right. Obvious. Well before the time you were covering the team or anything like that. So
I wasn't even living in Colorado.
yeah, you're what? You'd have been 20 by then, maybe.
Oh yeah, I was in that weird part of my life where I was not doing anything, basically.
I know that part of life for sure. Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it.
No, I've been there.
In my early 20s with no direction and no real anything.
Yeah,
at all. I was just.
I've lived that life for sure. Yeah.
I was just existing because I was supposed to.
Yep. So, kind of felt like the Avs were in the same spot in life at the time, to be honest.
Yeah, they really did. They had an identity crisis where they were hanging on. They had Sakic and Hayduk, and they brought back Foote.
Yep.
And
they're the next ones of, like I mentioned, Svatos, Volsky.
Yeah.
Number of goaltenders that they ran through at the time. They never.
Peter Budaj.
Yep.
Was kind of the hot guy. Then Jose Theodore and.
They just never found themselves, kind of.
Yeah, they were constantly searching, and Pierre Lacroix had not adjusted to the salary cap era very well.
Yeah.
And the big, bold moves that sort of defined him at the height of his powers were gone. And it was just sort of a sad end, even though I think there were a couple of years there where Francois Giguère was technically the GM.
Yeah, but nonetheless, it was the beginning of what ended up being a very rough decade for the Avs, kind of outside of 9-10 and 13-14, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, would have been interesting to take a look at how it all started, but I think we've covered probably the ones I would love, unless you have any other ones that really stick out to you.
No, not really. Like this year's team, just because they were so good and they were so motivated.
Yeah.
They were very, very driven. That would have been, I think that would have been fun.
Sure. 95, 96, of course, could have been interesting with a team moving here and players acclimating to the new city. The big Wah trade, obviously, and then they go on to win the Cup, of course. But
yeah, I mean, 96, obviously, just when you have a documentary that ends in a championship, you already have for interesting material.
Right, exactly. So, yeah.
Are there any non-Av seasons off the top of your head that really stick out that you think would be interesting?
Right off the top of my head.
The only one that I could think of was the post-lockout, when they had like the full season lockout.
Yeah, the following year with the massive changes to the league, goal scoring was like way, way up.
Right, where, I mean, the league was just totally different.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same kind of reasons. I think the half lockout year, the 48 game season, would have been interesting as well. But, boy, not sure. There's not been a ton of controversy over the years, really.
Yeah.
As far as like season-long controversies that you talk about.
Yeah, it's not really the NHL style.
Yeah, they don't really do that. So you could post-lockout a little bit, but a couple years back when they kind of changed all of the slashing rules and stuff, and you could, having not necessarily a behind the scenes of that, but behind the scenes of like the league office, after that video of Gaudreau getting hacked 50 times comes out and he breaks his wrist, and the changes they're enacting on the referee's side on the fly, things like that would be interesting. But
I think like a league office documentary about how they react to crisis would be fun too.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
You know, like how they do you remember when they changed the rule after Sean Avery screamed Marty Brodeur by standing in front of him
facing the goalie,
like clown shoesing himself, and then they like that night changed the rules so they couldn't do that anymore. Like that, I think, like what does it look like from a league office perspective, where one of them is watching it and is like, "This is unacceptable.
We cannot have this." Yeah.
You picture just like a malevolent, like angry Gary Bettman, like lashing out and being like, "Fix it!" and like slamming his like little munchkin hand down on the table and like, you know, like I just think like it would be such an interesting look to see how the league operates in a situation like that. What's going on at the league offices right now? Like, why are we getting different nonsense leaked to us every single day? Like, what's happening inside that building that's causing that? I think it would be maybe just a 24-hour Twitch stream of the league office so I could just sit and watch it.
I fear it would look far too much like the Everett Tweakers feed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I more imagine Bettman as like the mob boss sitting there watching the Avery tape on loop going, "Look what they did to my boy." As his boy being hockey, of course. But,
right, of course.
But either way, honestly, I think I'd be way more down for a league office documentary than for even an Avs one or any team for that matter.
It would just be something total that we've never seen before.
Exactly.
Really, you don't ever get those inside looks at how any of the leagues are run.
Yeah. Those lottery balls were rigged, I'm telling you. Anyway, on that note, I guess we're out of here for the day, as the Avs may never have a documentary quite like that, but you never know. In the future, maybe Nathan MacKinnon retires a surefire Hall of Famer and they get in a last dance with him. We'll just have to wait and see and experience it ourselves. But anyway, thank you for listening. As always, we will be back tomorrow. We have another prospect watch along on Wednesday as well. So hope y'all will join us for that at 6 p.m. and we will see you then. Denver Rubber Company is the most reliable local partner for your long-term projects, and they have been since 1972. As an essential business during these times, they have served industries from government, wind energy, military defense, even food and beverage. So they have you covered no matter what the project is you're working on, whether you need rubber or cut metal parts, they have you covered. Foam gaskets, hose assemblies, you name it. Give them a call today at 1-800-259-0010 or visit them at drcfirst.com/DNVR.